So you have the big drop and the same kind of thing as chain link going on. But look at this trend line from this pivot to this pivot high to this pivot high right down. And look at how Bitcoin's trying to break out. If it can break above this, I think you get a short-term short squeeze where this could at least see 22.5, maybe even 25,000. Like, who would have thought that Bitcoin would be less volatile than the stock market, right? I mean, that's really what it is, though. But looking quickly at the charts, there's a level I'm watching for a potential near-term breakout. Now, let's not fool ourselves. The bigger pattern is still bearish, so you have the big drop and the same kind of thing as chain link going on. But look at this trend line from this pivot to this pivot high to this pivot high right down, and look at how Bitcoin's trying to break out. If it can break above this, I think you get a short-term short squeeze where this could at least see 22.5, maybe even 25,000. So again, that's kind of how I'm favoring. I think there's a lot of bearishness because of how dead Bitcoin has been, and I think you might get some sort of breakout here in the near term. I don't think it's a long-term breakout. I still think the longer term, you're still stuck inside of this longer-term range, which is bearish. But it doesn't mean as a trader I can't make money in the near term on the long side if we get a breakout. So short term would be neutral to bullish, I would say. Longer term, over the next couple months into year end, I'd be worried that by year end it starts breaking lower again. Yeah, so I mean, at this stage, I think that's my high end. I hate that everyone is saying it now, right? I mean, it's one of those things where we all know when everyone starts talking about a level, that's where it's like, okay, well, it's either not going to get there or it's going to go below that level. So I still think, I've been racking my brain and I'm like, okay, well, if the stock market still has like 30% downside, which I think it does, how does Bitcoin not at least go down 30% or more, right? So it's a tricky scenario here. I would love to see that pivot on Bitcoin where it starts to go up when the stock market goes down, but it doesn't seem quite yet to have that maturity of Bitcoin at this point. Honestly, I think that makes a lot of sense. And it's important for us as traders and investors to kind of think about these things logically. Just like, the months going into the midterms, it didn't make sense for oil to still be at 120. There's no way it was going to stay up there going into midterms when you got to get votes. Same thing with the stock market. You can't have the stock market dropping another 10% in the next 2 weeks going into the midterms. People aren't going to be happy about that, right? So it makes sense that maybe we get a short-term bounce, which then should benefit crypto as well, going into the midterms. Then once the midterms are over, then whatever, I guess. I think I've heard of it, but I do not know details about it. But you guys, I'd love to know more about it. Yeah, so I mean, you're right. In the equities market, stock market, there's definitely that's a big no-no. You can go to jail for sure doing. And we know it as pump and dumps, which happen in any asset class potentially. But it sounds to me like, I'd have to know more about the inner workings, but if he was playing by the rules and there aren't strict rules about it, maybe he can get away with, my guess is he talked to lawyers, right? And they probably looked at it and said, because if initially he was saying, oh, I'll give some of the funds back, and now all of a sudden he's like, no, he probably talked to some legal experts and they're like, dude, you did nothing wrong here. Now, does that mean that he in the future there needs to be regulation so this stuff doesn't happen? Probably, right? So it's another example of something going on where we just need a book of rules where people don't get burned. Because I think that's the biggest thing, right? With crypto, it's like it's the Wild West, and that the average person that doesn't know anything, those are the people that end up getting burned, and it's not fair to them when you could say, oh, let's screw them, they should have known, but you just need these rules to make people feel more comfortable, especially if you want the mom and pops to invest in crypto and kind of make this a longer lasting thing. Yeah, so it looks to me, and let's bring up the chart here of ETH, is that you're basically in what we would refer to as a wedge pattern, right? So you have this line here sloping down, then this one connecting the recent lows, and you're hovering right on support. So for me, it's one of those scenarios where, kind of like a couple of the other ones we looked at, is that as long as it holds this line, you look to attack this area here, and if it can break out, then you start heading up to the next resistance, which is a line from the all-time high on ETH down to this secondary high, which looks to me to be around 1750 or so up here. So to me, there's no definitive like this is going to bust out here. since I'm bullish on Bitcoin, I would say that I'm slightly bullish on ETH as well, just because they tend to move together. But really what we need to see is this line broken here, which would be your short-term resistance, and then you can get that pop to, basically 1750 or so.
Now, if it does break that lower trend line, where do you think the stop market, where do you think how far down do you think it's going to go? If you had a confirmed breakout on there.
If it breaks here and starts to kind of go lower, you got to be looking at back to that sub $1,000 level. And again, no one wants to see it there, but if once you break this line, there's really not much support until you get down to these lows and then this low right down here. So yeah, you're looking right around $1,000 if it busts down there. Yes. So just like any trader or any investor or any person that's been through the ringer many times in trading like myself and investing, I'm a big believer in trading it, but also that if you have a bigger thesis, then you want to be invested for a longer period. So basically what I didn't buy, I was all out of Bitcoin aside from trading it until we got below 20,000. Once we got below 20,000, when we hit 19, even though I think it's going to 12, 13, maybe even sub, I decided to take a chunk of money, let's call it, I don't know, like $300,000, and I took it, I divided it into 1/6 amounts, and I put 1/6 of that to work at 19. And then the idea is that as it drops every 3,000 or so, I'm just going to add another 1/6 and kind of be very robotic as an investor to dollar cost average in. Because again, for all I know, it's bottoming here. I mean, again, the charts say right now that probabilities favor a move down, but I could be wrong. And I don't want to miss the train on the upside as well. So I love the long-term thesis on Bitcoin and crypto. So I'm just kind of inching in here. If it drops to 16, I'll add more. If it drops to 13, I'll add more. 10, 7, etc., all the way down. So yes, I'm a big believer. Don't ever have a hard line in the sand because you might be wrong. If you like something enough for the long term and you think you're going to go to 100, 500,000, don't be a stickler over a few $1,000. Exactly. I call it my shotgun effect. So like, you fire a gun, it's one bullet at one target. If you do a shotgun, you're just kind of spreading out those pellets and likely, as long as you're getting in the general range, your dollar cost average in. I'll tell you guys a quick story, like 2-second story.
Yeah, please.
So I'm from New York originally, from Long Island. So I'm used to all that great pizza and all that stuff. And I've lived in Florida now for a while, in Oregon for a while as well. And I went back to meet a client in New York for the first time in years, and I legit spent $100 on myself at a pizza place. And then by the end, I was it was so good, but I ate so much that I was like, yes, absolutely. On Twitter at Gareth Soloway, you see In the Money Stocks. If you're into stocks and technicals, that's where you find me there. I have Verified Investing Crypto, which is just cryptocurrencies and daily video trading. And then my latest project is Verified Investing Education, which is basically analyzing charts, learn everything I've spent 20 years screwing up to learn up to this point, how to trade profitably and kind of analyze charts, the mindset of a trader, how to be disciplined, all the things that you have there. That's in a 3-course series called The Winning Trader at Verified Investing Education.